All righty. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for the town of Durham. At this time, we'd like to ask everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So again, good evening, everybody. For tonight, I will be filling in for Joe. He is excused for this evening. Also, we'd like to recommend our newly elected selectman, Mr. Roy, to the panel. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Happy to be here.
All righty. Is there any amendments to the agenda before we get going? Oh, we have a quorum.
Oh, I thought you had to make it a thing.
No, we did with one missing, but no, we're good. It's implied. Any amendments?
No.
No, seeing none. Public comment. Do we have anyone here for public comment? Going once? Okay. No public comment tonight. Department head reports tonight. First up will be the fire chief.
Good evening. Something looks different. I haven't put my finger on it. It looks different. I'm sure you got my agenda first. If not, I have extra copies. I'll give you a grant update that you haven't heard. We submitted a county grant to EMA for radios. That was in the form of $21,000. There's a lot of behind the scenes what you don't see. So when I was in 3-day class in the fall, I went over there the other day and fought for us. So we went to the top of the list for radios. So 3-4 portables and one for the truck, fighting against Lewiston, Auburn, just all of them. But they recognize that we're small piece of the pie, and we've been playing well with others. So when you do diligence on the front side, that takes a few months. It goes up to the state level, the feds, it comes back down. So. But that all looks promising. We also submitted a grant for a new boat to Firehouse Subs. Every quarter they take grants. As you know, Firehouse Subs was formed by 2 firefighters. They give back tens of millions of dollars every year to public safety. I don't have a dollar amount and I don't have a time frame, but it's been submitted. Our boat is more than 20 years old. We got it from the Stephen King Foundation. So I'll keep you updated on that. Today, if you drove by, we did some hose testing. Annually, every foot of hose has to be tested. So I got 12,700 today, 2.4 miles tested in the rain. We do contract with a company. There's about 4 of us to help them out. So that's done. 3 members of our guys just attended the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland. They drove down there 8 hours. We sponsored them. They took some classes, rejuvenated, came back full of piss and vinegar, if you will, and ready to change the world. But federal facility down there, top-notch instructors, classes you can't get anywhere else. All our requests for proposals, our RFPs have been sent out for our capital improvement plans. I heard from one member today, a vendor for the Quint, the generator. The exhaust system's been given out, and we're still waiting on the utility vehicle. Open bids are Friday for the utility and for the Quint, Friday at 9. We are starting up a Fire Explorer cadet program. That's for ages 14 through 18. We've been advertising slowly. We'll have a start date for them to come in, get them excited about fire, EMS. We've had that before. On the radar for the new members, that's just for next month. I have some ambulance receipts to the tune of $36,000 that has not been paid over the last year and a half. That's through Comstar billing. So I will be reaching out to you with another packet of avenues of what to do with that. We have several choices. It's not just black or white. So you'll receive that for next month's packet. And if you have questions up front, let me know. And you may have heard, finally, it's not written down, we had a structure fire last Friday at Friday morning, about midnight, 1 a.m. It was an occupied dwelling on Was it Old Mill Road or Mill Pond?
Hill Pond.
Right over there. Again, when you hear us, when I explain that, we go to other towns, those are deposits. So the other night, I had the Brunswick chief sitting next to me, Lisbon chief and deputy, Lisbon guys in the building, Freeport guys in the building, Brunswick and Lisbon tankers out on Royalsboro, and I special called Pownell and sent 4 guys out of 6 that they have at 1 a.m. To station coverage. So when we go to other towns, they do appreciate it, and they do return the favor. No injuries. The occupants did lose almost everything. We contacted the Red Cross for them. They are staying elsewhere. I remind everybody that's probable, it's undetermined, but probable disposable of smoking materials outside. So something to think about. Smoke detectors did not alert them. A dog did. They were very lucky. So that's all I have tonight, unless you have any questions.
Is there any questions for the chief?
I have a question.
Sure.
I think that I saw, it was posted on the fire department's Facebook page about, CPR
Yes.
that's funded, grant funded.
Yes.
Is that I couldn't quite catch where that was taking place.
I think I've had several questions of interest. If you click on that second one, I believe it's out of the college. That's where that grant's going to come from.
Okay. But I mean, that class is not happening here.
Correct. And I'll make sure it's
Okay.
clear.
Okay.
Because several have asked that.
Okay.
We can, as you know, put on a CPR class. That one has 2 different dates, 8-hour days. CPR BLS, free of charge, and that's through the grant process through the college that we've hooked up with, partnership with Lieutenant Joe Lamont,
Mhm.
who does that. So daycares, new at-home moms, Boy Scout troops, anyone, free of charge. But again, I'll make sure it's clear on the website.
Okay. Thank you. And great job on the radio grant.
Thank you. I look forward to telling you when we get it and receive it and whatnot. Our radio line item is 2,500. So we're 9-10 times our annual budget for that. And it's just a constant, as you know, rotation and whatever comes down the pike. So that was well fought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, chief. Next up, we have the road commissioner, Mr. Calvin Beaumier. Come on up.
Hello, welcome, Heather. Joe.
Thanks.
You guys have the report, you all have it. So we've been working on cleaning up all the town properties, getting rid of all the leaves and debris from the winter plow damage. Getting ready for mowing, we've got all the equipment tuned and ready to go. We've been working on the gravel roads, keep them passable in mud season. If you've lived on a dirt road, you know that you start to get potholes and mud holes. And so we've been adding gravel and keeping those passable until we can grade them next month. Jerry and I attended the bid opening for the stream crossing grant, and the only bidder was St. Laurent, as they were awarded the project at $276,450. We have 300, I believe. We have 150 for grant and 150 for capital. But you want to leave a little there for contingency if we hit ledge or some other issue arises. So that would leave us with about 25,000, and hopefully we don't need it. I've been working on putting the bid specs together for the 1.5 ton truck, working with a few different vendors to try to get that finalized. Should have that ready hopefully this coming week and ready to go out to bid. We've removed lifted all the weight restrictions for spring. Jerry and I attended the APW Spring Conference in Augusta, where I received the MDOT Road Scholar Award. See, that's been published. Jerry and I attended the contract sign. We signed the contract this morning with St. Laurent for the 270. There's a bid opening, there's a bid award, then there's this contract signing. So that's all been done. Last Friday, I was made aware there was a leak at the Eureka Center, and apparently the water heater had blown a pressure relief valve, so we changed that on Friday, and a few of the floor tiles are turned up a little bit, but it's dry now, and then we have to see where some of the tiles have been removed, and we're gonna have to see what Pearl wants to do there on a permanent basis. And that's about it.
Is that stream crossing for the Swamp Road?
What's the timeline for that?
They can't do any of the in-stream work until between July 15th and September 30th. So that's when they plan on getting that work done. And then the decking and some of the out-of-stream work would be done early October. So it should be done by November 1st, I would say.
Is there any concern about how the work is going on right now over on 125 and any traffic situation with Swamp Road? Is that road going to be closed for them to do that work?
When they open the road up and they're pouring putting in the abutments and things, yeah, that would be closed. So they would have to go up Old Brunswick or Quaker Meeting House. But we'll have a meeting with the contractor, come up with that plan, and we'll publish that like we did on Auburn Powell Road. We'll draw a map, put that out for everyone to see.
There'll be detour signs and
Yeah, we'll have it all.
Oh, would that be, just out of curiosity, and maybe it's too early to tell or too premature, but would that be a total closure of a road, or would that just be down to like a one lane, you think?
Nope, total, and they have to remove
We'd have 125 and Swamp Road closed?
well, 125 isn't closed.
One
It's
lane.
alternating traffic.
One lane.
Might as well, but it takes me forever to get
Right.
Calvin, just real quick, all I got is just if you could just refresh my memory on that grant. It was 150, correct? So that's a matching grant,
Well, it's 150
or is it 100? That's the question. Is it 150 up?
flat.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And we had approved some in 2022
Yep.
and then again in 2023. And that total amount came to the 300.
Yes, there was 101 the year before, and then 49 or 50 this past year. So
Okay, perfect.
Any other questions for the road commissioner?
I don't have any questions, but I'd just like to say congratulations on your award.
thank you very much.
Yes, Calvin. Nice job.
Thanks.
The word scholar's throwing me off a little bit, but I'm in. I'm in.
Me too. All right, thanks.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Manager.
Thank you. So May 1st starts our financial services contract. So myself and Jessica and Cindy have been compiling all of our financial reports to get ready. It's quite an extensive list. Mark Roy is coming with one of his staff next Tuesday to grab everything that they need to get the onboarding process started. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that's one of the things we've been working on. ARPA reporting. This is interesting. So ARPA reporting is due every April 30th. So I went to do it. MMA has some help where you click on a link and it kind of guides you through the reporting. And I got stuck where I didn't have an employee identification. So I had to call the Treasury, and the Treasury asked if we really actually got the ARPA money. I said, I think so, because there's no record that they have of us getting anything. So the reporting didn't get done last year either. So right now we're on a case study. So they're going to call me back.
Who doesn't have record,
The U.S. Treasury.
doesn't have record that they sent us the money?
There's nothing in their system that says anything about the town of Durham, Maine.
Is the money distributed by the state?
It may have, but they just didn't have any, because reporting should have been done last year and it never was done.
Yeah, I'm not
So-
sure if that was like a big block that goes to the state and
And
then
then
they
they-
disseminate it
They may,
amongst the.
but the reporting needs to be done April 30th. So anyway, I'm telling you, it's going to be late because they don't have us in the system. And
extension.
Yes.
Uh, they're going to call up. They're going to call me back and help me get through this reporting system. There was nothing I could do. We were stuck. She couldn't help me, so she's forwarding on to someone else to get that done. So I want to follow up on the permit fees. So George had spoken with the attorney, and we can assess fees on anything that we give a permit for, even if there's not one established. We can establish one. If we give a permit, we can establish fees. So, okay, so there's that. So Friday here, from 9:30 to 3:30, I think I enrolled in a basic municipal budgeting workshop, invited the budget committee, invited the select board. More than welcome to come. That's still on. I got all the Zoom stuff that I need for Friday. So if you
Friday at what time?
9:30, I think it starts.
I have a question about that. Do you want me to wait until you're done to ask my questions?
Sure, that's about all I have right now as far as what I've been doing.
So I'd like to come on Friday.
Yeah,
I might have to leave like a half an hour early. Would that be inappropriate?
no, and this is all voluntary. If people have folks have something to do and they need to scoot, that's fine. There's nothing. I just did it for everybody, even myself. I haven't attended a MMA basic municipal budgeting either, so it'll be interesting.
Friday from 9:30 to when?
3:30, and they very rarely go though to 3:30. So I don't know what we'll do for lunch. Maybe we know someone that works at a Subway that can donate a platter or something. I don't know, but
Firehouse sounds pretty good.
but that's basically what I've been working on since the last time I saw you.
I have a couple questions. Just to make sure that I understand the ARPA situation. So we have received the funds,
Yes, we received them in 21 and 22.
but the people who sent us the money don't have any record of us accepting the funds or
We
receiving
have
the
record
funds?
of accepting the fund.
Yeah.
It's the treasury that you report to doesn't.
And last year there wasn't a report
No, the
done.
report never got filed.
Okay. So what is prompting them questioning us this year is you're trying to file the report and now they're saying,
We're not in the system.
okay. All right.
So do you think that it's a situation where it wasn't reported because I don't think we had spent the money by April 30th of 22.
But
We
you
only approved it at town meeting in 22.
But you
Right.
still report it that
Special
you.
town meeting.
Right.
But you still got to report it that you have it. You may have obligated but not spent it, and that's the kind of information they're looking for. I think it didn't get reported because the town was going through changes, and it just didn't get done.
I was assuming it's implied once they cash the check. that You got it.
Yeah, I mean we have it again. It's just the reporting part of it.
Right.
Do you know if there's any sort of penalty for not reporting?
She
or
didn't
late?
mention any penalty or anything, and I told her, I said, I'm here to do it. And if you follow the video, it isn't that hard to do,
Mhm.
but you've got to have an identification number, and that just was never set up last year. So, like I said, they'll call and help us out.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that I'm trying to get done, clean up.
Did you have more questions, Joe?
Nope, that was just, I want to make sure I understood.
Yeah,
what's going on.
and I'll keep
Appreciate
I'll
you
keep
getting
you,
on top of it.
and I'll
now,
keep
though.
you updated once it starts and once I get it reported, I'll let you know. So, but
I had a question that I wanted to ask about while you're getting the onboarding process for payroll and for the other services. I'm noticing that when I'm looking at the warrants, if someone's being paid, they're being paid one amount, but it may be a person who is either perhaps reimbursed for mileage or, whatever. And so I'm wondering, and I'm speaking from my own business experience, right? So if I have my employee and she is getting paid her regular hourly wage, or she's getting paid time off, or she's getting early childhood education workers are getting a $200 grant from the state once a month, that all gets separated out on her pay stub, but her check is for one total amount. So I know we're not seeing those individual lines, but going forward, if we want to be budgeting and tracking and making adjustments or, just for informational purposes, I think it's important that when those accounts are set up, where we're not just putting in one fixed thing per person, that if like the chief wants to know, or if Calvin wants to know, or we want to know the information based on how people are being paid in what category, that's getting set up that way.
We wouldn't put that on a warrant.
No, I know it wouldn't be on a warrant. I'm saying like,
But
I
the-
don't know if
but
currently it's set, the paychecks are set
The
up that
paycheck's
way.
just like if you haven't gotten a paycheck here probably yet, but it's just like any other business or any other company. If they use vacation time, it's showing on their pay stub, they use vacation time. If they have an allotment or something taken out, or whatever taxes they claim, that's taken out. But we wouldn't be privy to, for say, what they're claiming and things like that.
Yeah, no, and I don't want to know any of that. What I want to know is like if a person's being reimbursed for mileage, or if a person's being reimbursed for whatever, their cell phone, like those types of things. I think that those things should show separately in the account situation, so that if we're trying to make budgeting decisions in the future, we can see that we're reimbursing this total amount of money for mileage. We're reimbursing this total amount of money towards whatever other things do you see what I'm saying? I think it's going to be important to have that
All separate
information
items.
available as we make decisions about the budget going forward. I think one of the things that we haven't done well is track.
I think you're confusing two different things here. Everything that they're doing is tracked. He can tell you what they're reimbursing the chief for, let's say a cell phone or a mileage or something like that. It's a pay warrant. It's just payables.
I'm not talking about the warrant. I'm saying when they're doing this thing where they're setting it up with a new person keeping track of it, that those things, that we have the ability to run reports based on
That's what I just,
criteria.
no, I understand,
Yeah,
but that's what I just told you. We're doing all that already.
Yeah.
You're just not going to see that on a warrant.
Right.
Right.
Everything is, for lack of better words, classified as they pay it out. Like, for example, if they're paying out mileage, it's classified as mileage. It doesn't go in there as gross pay or anything of that nature.
Okay.
If they're paying out healthcare, it goes in under a line item of healthcare.
Okay.
So, but it's not going to show up.
On what we see every
On what
month
you
as the total amount.
No, because you
towards
would have
whatever. Right.
You get a
Yep.
Bible every time.
And
you
that's
sign
completely
something.
fine. I just want to make sure that like, and not just for necessarily those things, but I think that, anyway, we can have a more detailed conversation about this if you want to. But when I'm looking at some of the other municipalities, like and I know that we do this for like winter roads and summer roads, but they'll have like winter roads labor and summer labor. And I just think if we're going to be trying to make budgeting decisions, part of what makes that difficult, and I'm talking now as a budget committee member, right, is that we're looking at these big group categories that make it difficult to figure out where dollars are being spent, or dollars could be saved, or dollars could be used differently without that kind of detail that would help us make decisions like that,
Mhm.
or information.
It's probably not the time or place, but in the past 4 or 5 years, we don't do a line item budget anymore in this town. We're not breaking down everything. So if you got $500,000 for the chief, for example, he might break down $150,000 for labor, $50,000 for maintenance, things like that. But he's not going to break down the $50,000, $10,000 is oil changes, $7,000 is tire rotations, things like that. That's
Would you agree that it would be helpful to have a maintenance line that we know if we're spending maintenance on the firehouse building, or if we're spending maintenance on this building?
We do
or if we're
have that.
spending maintenance
we
on
do know if we're
Eureka?
paying. We do have a maintenance per building. That's already there. That's always been there. There's a maintenance side for every building that we have.
I feel like that's not what we're seeing. At least the budget committee. We're
budget
not
com-
seeing those kinds
before
of
you-
things.
Before you go into that, the budget committee sees the same stuff or has access to the same stuff that the
That we all
select
do.
board sees.
And you can get that breakdown, but I don't know if that's really going to help you put a budget together, because
Maybe this would be a better conversation to have
Yeah.
after we do the thing on Friday.
yeah, yeah,
Probably. It's probably, if it's something like we're looking to change the budgetary structure, that's something that we need to address in an agenda item.
right.
It can't be addressed right now, obviously, because that would require some everybody to have some thought and input into it.
So
Well, and
when
we
you're
can-
doing this with this person before May 1st, is he telling you the categories or are you telling him the categories?
He's going to use what we have, but we're going to update them because they're difficult to follow. Like for instance, and again, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but in the Public Works Utilities line, it's cable and fuel mixed. So you would never know if,
That's the kind of thing that I'm talking
yeah,
about.
that's all part of the process. It's going to take some time to get there though, you know?
Yeah.
And like with wages, I mean, I know people want to see what everybody
I
makes.
don't actually.
But when you're putting a budget together, you just want to deal with wages because there's a lot of math that goes into that and figuring out FICA and all this. And if you have to do that for every employee and break it down, it's just a risk for mistakes. So if you do it once under wages, you got your FICA taken care of. But we can talk about that in a budgeting workshop or class or whatever.
Okay.
It's not.
Because like part of like the thing with the utilities, right? If we're talking about that, we're going to be going and trying to do the lights, the grant for the lights, but now our utilities are mixed as lights and fuel. That makes it difficult
Right.
to give them that information because you have to give very specific information when you're
Right.
filling out those applications.
But electricity is electricity. It's not going to break down lights and copiers and
No, I know that. I'm just you're saying in utilities that it was counting fuel and electricity
That's the
in
way
the
it
same
was.
line.
Yeah,
and I'm
right.
saying that can't happen if we're trying to do a grant.
Guys, I don't want
That's
to cut anybody off, but this
that's
is
exactly
this
right.
is-
We're
this is
working
gone
on
too
that
far already.
actually.
We can address this in another meeting if you guys want to put it on an agenda, but it's not on the agenda.
Right.
So my only question is, when do you expect to hear about this ARPA stuff from the feds?
When you're dealing with the feds, that's a real good question. If I had a crystal ball and I could see, I would tell you, but I don't know. I got a case number and that's where it was left when we hung up the phone. It's the federal government.
No, I understand. I'm worried about the sanctions for not filing last.
I don't think
So-
there's really any sanctions.
We
Then
don't pay taxes.
there's
My
like
concern-
488 towns in this state, and I'm sure we're all facing. Some of us are having a hard time finding our EUI number, which is a big. It's a problem.
Is it called the EUI?
EUI, Employee Unique Identification Number, or something like that. We just got it activated today.
I've heard of EIN.
So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that we could sit here until 10 o'clock tonight and talk about those, but it's getting taken care of. It's just,
Yeah, I just think if there's if someone calls you again or whatever, if we can figure out if there is a penalty or something, because sometimes they're with federal funds, obviously there's like if you haven't allocated it or properly tracked it or whatever. And I know that you're doing everything to get us square, which
Right.
is great. Just wondering if there's something we have to expect down the road.
well, when I know, I'll let you all know.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
But appreciate you getting on
Yeah.
top of it.
The filing is to make sure you're using the money appropriately, correct?
Exactly. What you have obligated, what you have
It's-
expended.
It's not about adjusting income and things of that.
No,
nature.
no,
It's just
no.
that you're doing the proper things with the money and you've taken the proper steps to use the money. Correct?
That's correct.
Anything else for the town manager tonight?
No, sir.
All right, moving right along to Article 6. We're going to go into some old business here. And at this time, we'll call up George Berg and John Talbot.
So I'll just start off while they get situated. So we sat down today to talk about this a little bit more in depth, and so we want to try to get the committee word kind of out of the equation here, because it's not, after talking about it, it's really just after town meeting, talking about what do we want to work on next as far as ordinances. Is it affordable housing? Is it anything with a historical commission? Is it anything to do with solar arrays? Anything like that? So we can move forward and get the right people involved, because they're all involved when you think about it. I mean, because the Historic District Commission is doing something, the planning board is going to be involved. If there are solar arrays, maybe the Conservation Commission is going to be involved, and they need to talk to the planning board. So it's more of collaborating in that sense, but that direction has to come from the board. just like what we're going to try to do, hopefully both tonight's not on the agenda, but establish a date to have a workshop to talk about where are we going in the next year. And once we talk and we talk about what ordinances you want to look at or change, then I can relay that back to the planning board or George and say, this is the direction the town wants to go in. So it's more of like a ordinance summit, if you will.
Yeah.
And getting people together to talk, because they all need to talk to one another. It's not nice to work in silos because one silo doesn't know what the other silo is doing. So, and it really does affect the other entity. So,
No, that's fine. I think that's a great idea, but the only thing I would say differently is I would like them to come to the board to see what ordinances they would want to change.
I guess that's my question. Do you agree that it's the planning board's responsibility to update the ordinances?
Yes, I mean,
And
yeah, I mean, I don't have any, in George as a spiel as well, but I see that from my view, this committee, yes. And I don't like people interfering with, I would not be happy if people start interfering with the planning board, whether it be the selectmen or another committee or whatever it may be, townspeople with pitchforks, whatever it may be. So, yes,
and that's something that you stay on top of?
yes, I think we do. I mean, George has a spiel, so I'll let him.
Oh, then I won't.
But
I was gonna say, if that's the case, then why do we need to talk about it anymore? I mean, if that's your responsibility, you know that, and you're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, well, they can take direction as far as like, how the board, if they have something that they want to bring to the board, like, hey, we're looking at making these changes just to keep us apprised of it.
Oh, yeah.
That's really what it should be, in my opinion. And I think they agree, like, we shouldn't be influencing every step that they make. A lot of times with these ordinances, why they're asking for change is simply to clarify them. It's not necessarily, we haven't really changed, correct me if I'm wrong, George. We change ordinances, but it's really just the clarification because of whether it's the ambiguity of them or maybe there's no need to have them anymore and state changes or something of that nature. But I mean, personally, I've always been of the belief that you have a planning board, you have a town planner. Let's not micromanage and let them do their job. But go ahead, gentlemen.
Yeah, just from my perspective, having been with the town now almost 5 years, started with the comprehensive plan update, and that was unanimously adopted at the 2018 town meeting, and it set 3 goals for the town. First is to preserve the rural character. The town had a growth area, and that kind of got decided that that's just not going to work here in Durham. So rural character, natural resources protection, and agriculture were like the 3 big themes that came out of it. And that plan had a whole series of recommended policies for lots of different areas as required by the state. So we've been following that in a lot of different areas, like the resource protection realignment. And so the question becomes, I think it's more than just, because we did do a lot of reconciling of messed up languages,
Right.
and ordinances all over the place, almost like your budget, trying to pull that process together. So what I observed was that the first year of implementation after the comprehensive plan, we overhauled the land use ordinance and fixed it so it was a workable document. And that got through the town meeting pretty good. But then after that, it's like the next couple of times, and we spend a lot of time, the committees and staff time, putting together ordinances or amendments. And then it gets to town meeting, and there's this big debate at the town meeting on process. That was what was really kind of made the machine go off the track. And so what we did in the last year was we really focused on getting cooperation and communication between the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, and the Select Board. And it went much smoother this year. So I think that's really what we're talking about. And from my perspective as kind of the town planner doing most of the legwork on this stuff, it's really, really important that the process be efficient. And so our concern is that if the planning board takes on this new affordable housing issue and heads through a whole summer of trying to put together regulations, then it comes back to the select board. And you may have a completely different view on what the town should go in terms of direction. So you'll remember, Heather, how much time the
Excuse me,
planning
sorry.
board spent on home-based businesses.
Mhm.
Spent the whole summer working on it.
Yeah.
And then got nothing out of it.
Mhm.
So that's my concern, and what I see the benefit of this idea of the policy committee groups. Planning board has primary responsibility, but Conservation Commission has their area of responsibility as well, as does the Historic District Commission and the Board of Appeals. And so kind of just as a model, what I was envisioning is that this coming year, the affordable housing issue is coming down. It goes into effect on July 1st unless there's a delay by the state, which I don't anticipate is going to happen. So the planning board has been focusing on that for the last year and is really on top of it. We have no regulations in this town for solar farms, and we've had people working on applications. So when that comes to the planning board, there are no standards to review a 20-acre solar farm array. That's obviously an issue in terms of your sustainability. The Conservation Commission is interested in, renewable energy. So there's kind of common ground for there. And so the goal would be to get the groups that finding common ground and working together so that you know what's going before the town meeting and everybody's on the same page like this last round, instead of the last round where everybody was coming at it from different angles. Then it just dissolved on the floor of the town meeting, which is really a waste of time. So that's kind of our concept, is to just get these groups in an organized fashion to meet right after town meeting to say, okay, here are the issues, which, you can only get 3 or 4 on the town meeting effectively. And so what are those going to be and who's going to work on it and put it together? And then bring it back to the select board to say, look, this is what we're going to be working on. And then Labor Day is when you start the process, the public process. So everybody is in the loop and we're all working together.
And I would build on that to say that I think 2 things. One is there's a limited resources, and that George is the long pole in the tent because he has put a lot of time into writing whatever the ordinance is, whether it be resource protection, affordable housing. So we need to prioritize as a group so that, for instance, if we come in and we say, okay, affordable housing, we may or may not have to work on this year, depending upon what happens with state laws, but that's a huge chunk of time. And then historic district may have their thing that may or may not be a huge, maybe something simple like how do you rename private roads, or who accepts private roads? And then solar may be another one. And I think the best example, Josh, to your point, is that last year in June, the planning board sat down and said, okay, well, what do we want to take on by ourselves? And we said, okay, we want to do, affordable housing had just become the law. We talked about resource protection had gotten its butt kicked at the town meeting, and I forget what else. And then as a planning board, we said, well, we can take on one of those big things, affordable housing. We'll ask and I point to Joe because he was on the Conservation Committee at the time, we'll ask them to take the lead on working up the background, if you will, the history. So they held the first public information meeting, and they kind of took the lead on that while the planning board was working on affordable housing. And then at the end of the day, the only ones who can have a public hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, are the planning board and the selectmen. So conservation can't have one, history can't, cemeteries can't. So we could come back with historical if they had something they wanted to do after they did the legwork with George's input and all that other stuff, and said, this is what we're thinking about doing. This is the draft article. These are the bullet points for that article. And they would hold that public information meeting, get it to the point where they were comfortable with it. We would like to have some input from the selectmen to say, you're on the right track or not. Then the planning board would hold a public hearing. And with conservation, their resource protection, that's what we did. We didn't really get totally involved until the public hearings came along. So, but I don't think that we need the selectmen to come to our meetings and help us write that. I mean, that's.
So at our last meeting, there was talk about forming a committee, an ordinance committee that would look at and I think the leading suggestion was that's what the planning board is for. So why do we need that? But it sounds like you want something like that.
Well, I think in terms of helping, so if the historical commission, and I'm just picking on them, but the cemetery committee came in and said, we want to rewrite the block on cemeteries. And they went off and just did it. And that's a really bad example.
They don't have any authority to do that.
Yeah, if historical came in and said, we're going to rewrite our section. And then they just went off in the stovepipe and did their thing, and then brought it to us in January and said, now hold a public hearing. That's what we would try to avoid. That's where having an early meeting would help. And we could say, okay, look, George has X number of hours.
Yeah.
Affordable housing is going to take, throw numbers out.
And there are overlaps between this stuff because what the realignment of the Resource Protection District, you recall, we were telling people, here's the process for getting that specific boundary. That involves the Board of Appeals.
Mhm.
So what the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board put together on resource protection, without any real input from the Board of Appeals, could throw an awful lot of work at that Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
So there's ripple effects of each group
Yeah,
making
so-
decisions and making proposals.
The thought-
Everybody's involvement is at the beginning.
So you don't really need committee, it's more a
Right.
workshop.
He wants to call it a summit. But I mean,
Well, whatever, that's what we took,
Workshop
whatever.
is
I mean, and I agree. I
more
mean, that's
appropriate.
just summit, whatever you want to call it,
So-
where we get together and set.
The reason why, with the select board in particular, when you put one member of a select board in a committee like that, you get townspeople running their mouths, hey, that person's influencing in their own agenda.
Mhm.
It happens. It's happened in the past. And that's why I don't like select board members there's no reason why a planning board and a conservation committee and the historical district can't get this together. And what they should do is come and formulate a plan of what they want to work on and what they want to present to the select board.
And then you present that to us
Correct.
every so often.
So the way I've heard you describe it in the past, George, is essentially that a member from each of this town standing committees or commissions essentially would all get together and say, here's our town comprehensive plan. What are priorities that we are interested in seeing the town pursue this year, whether it's the resource protection district, whether it's addressing roads, whether it's addressing zoning, agriculture, or critical rural, or whatever. And so it sounds like what you're suggesting is that there just be like a precedence that it says every year after town meeting, a representative from each one of these boards gets together, discusses what can we take on. Like you were saying, we can only take on so much, but they might say, our committee has members who are passionate about this and would be willing to, at your request, planning board, work on drafting something to present for you and kind of do some of the legwork as volunteers. Ultimately, like it went with the Conservation Commission, you could say, we don't like this, we do like this, we do like that. And then the planning board then comes back to us. But it seems like your process there that would be different. It's just everyone's getting together, planning board's agreeing, these things are you all going to work on. And then you come to one of our meetings, say, hey, these are the objectives that we're trying to track down this year. We're going to work independently on them. We're just letting you know this is the direction we're going.
Or if there is, and hopefully there's not, but if somebody says, we got 500 hours of George,
Mm-hmm.
250 go to subdivisions and non-conforming use,
Mm-hmm.
we have 250 hours of George time, and affordable housing is going to take 200, and conservation committee is going to take 500. There's not enough resource there, and if we can't work something out, then we'd come back and get.
Yeah.
It's a priority.
Well, and I think that this seems like a planning exercise within the planning board, right? Planning for what resource priorities are, what comp plan priorities are, which I think is a good idea because when you start communicating earlier on, there's less miscommunication opportunities and there's less confusion at the end. So is it what you are all looking for is kind of like a formalized, like, yes, the select board agrees that you should have a member from each person meet annually and put that down somewhere, or just say business as usual, but do maybe consider this process? Because I like the idea of like having an annual summit where, things change. There's new pressure for developing solar that there might not have been, or a new sort of business type moves in and the town doesn't have any way to, handle that sort of request. I think it's important just to be planning properly for that.
One second. I'll get you next. I don't disagree with that, but really what should be taking place, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you gentlemen, you as the planning board chair and the planning board should be tackling whatever issues that you see as the highest priority And then once you identify those issues, then that list is made and then ask for the summit. My fear is you bring in conservation, you bring in, everybody has their wants and wish list, and everybody thinks their wants and wishes are a higher priority than the planning boards. But the planning board should be the one setting the precedent for the year and then asking for the input during that.
I'm okay with that. I mean, I think it's probably, I hate to say it, 6 of one, half dozen another. But
Yeah, I want you guys to not get monopolized on stuff that you guys feel as a board, your board, which is an actual,
Quasi judicial.
quasi judicial board, not, all of a sudden you're getting inundated because the conservation committee wants X, the historical district wants X. It should really be, what is your goals and agendas, and utilizing those resources to meet those goals and agendas.
Yeah, to me, it would be more like, what the department heads do every budget season is they
Yes.
present, here are our priorities. You rank them as the planning board and then make a plan going that way.
I just don't want you getting inundated because everybody's going to have a wish list.
Mhm.
When you open it up to, okay, what's everybody want to do this year, essentially? And conservation is going to have you a list. Historical district's definitely going to have you a list. I think the priority, you guys should be the priority of who determines what that's on that list. Go ahead, Heather.
So my two concerns with this are, one, I believe that it has happened in the past where it hasn't been resident led, and therefore we get to town meeting and it's not something that people are gonna pass because they haven't had input in the process. And I think that you guys did an amazing job this year compared to last year involving the residents. Thank you very much. The other concern that I have with that is that this is the only board that's elected other than the budget committee, which would not be part of this. All of these other boards are appointed by the select board. And so therefore, again, that's taking that away from the residents because those people are appointed by us that sit there. And so I would just like to put the idea out there that perhaps the planning board has their list of 5 or 10, or maybe 10 is too many, and that initially goes out in a survey to the town, the way that you guys did the survey this past year, and the residents rank.
But how does the residents determine what their priority needs are?
Well, I
If they're
think
having
if they
ordinance issues,
narrow, well, like we know affordable housing is a state mandate, right? So we know that has to be on the list if it doesn't get kicked down the road for 2 years, like they're talking about, right? But then the other things, like if we know we're not going to have the ability to take on more than 2 or 3, here's your list of 5 other than affordable housing, which we have to deal with. What are your priorities? And then the residents have input at the initial stages, because I don't want us to be in a situation where we spend all this time on these ordinances and we get to town meeting and they don't pass. That's wasted tax dollars. That's what. So if we poll from the beginning and we know what people want to take on by majority outside of what we have to take on, then I think we have a better chance of succeeding than getting there and have spent everybody's time and money all year for it to not pass.
I can respond to that in that there's 7 planning board members who are all residents. There's how many on historic, there's X number on
That's-
conservation.
That's where I respectfully disagree a little bit on that, because that to me feels like you're getting more towards like a direct democracy where everyone's voting on everything. I think that there's really good opportunity, even in the committees and commissions, for people to show up and share opinions. Like at the Conservation Commission, they're open to the public, and gladly anyone who wants to show up can say, I think this is something, I think you guys should do no solar. I think you guys should do all solar. Like, well, that's open, but we don't have that all goes to them. So I think that there's already that opportunity, and especially because a lot of these boards have openings where people could choose to volunteer too. So I think that at some point it gets to point where it's like we do have a responsibility to delegate to people to kind of be where the rubber hits the road, kind of. So that's my kind of thought on that. On your comment, Rich, with like people coming all sorts of different directions, I think that the one benefit of saying there's a set format where you have a summit is that each board and each committee has its different strengths and has a different makeup of citizens and people who have different experiences. So, there might be the historic commission might bring something to everyone's attention that could be an important thing that no one else on the other commissions are even thinking about. And ultimately, it's the planning board, the quasi-governmental organization that gets to decide. But I think that just opens up the opportunity for them to say, here's where our commission strengths are. Here's something we noticed. Is this something you want us to help you with? And the planning board could say, that's not a priority for us, but thank you for bringing it up. Maybe it's something we'll look at in the future. So I think it still gives the power to the planning board, but then allows kind of those more voices to get heard. And I kind of think of those commissions as each
It's kind of
like
like
a
capital
repres-
improvement, but
Commission should be
for
used as a tool.
ordinance.
Yeah, and that's where it's like, if the commission, if you come as a commission and say, hey, we really want to tackle this issue this year, and you say, we just don't have enough time, George is going to be tied up with this, we're tied up with that. The commission has other stuff they can go do. Conservation Commission can do park stuff, they can do workshops for the town or whatever, but they can say, we made the offer because this is something we have experience with. There's people on the commission who are project managers for solar projects. There's people on the commission who are specialists in, conservation easements. So it's like one of those things that the planning board could say, we're not interested in any of it, or, yeah, we do want your help. So I think that a summit, like what George and what you're describing, is beneficial. Ultimately, it's still the planning board's decision. And I think of it as a way to just kind of funnel more people to say, we're here to help if you want the help, kind of like what happened with the Conservation Commission. So long-winded, but that's kind of,
And that was a good example of how it worked.
Yeah.
With using the Conservation
I
Commission.
thought that was
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah, to take the load off of it didn't take the load off George, but it took.
somehow George still ends up with plenty of stuff to do. I don't think it does that, but but I think what helped with the planning board saying, hey, we've got all these applications coming through. Could you take the initial step to get that public input process? And that's where the explanation and all that stuff. And I think it paid dividends in terms of whether you agreed with the vote or not. It seemed like more people were ready to go at the starting line when the vote came along. So,
Like I said, that's fine.
Yeah.
But they should be driving the agenda. The agenda shouldn't be dictated to them by the other.
I think it's just opening to suggestions, saying that here's the things we've noticed that you may not have noticed that we might be interested in volunteering. And they still drive the agenda because they can say, we're not putting it on the agenda, but thanks for the input.
Here's our wish list. You decide out of all these that are submitted from all the
Do that, but the
committees.
primary
That's-
wish list should be developed by the planning board and the individuals of these other
It's like-
boards.
Like the capital improvement. plan.
Right. And the individuals of the other boards should be providing their input for what they're trying to work.
Yeah, I think we're,
From my perspective,
We
as
can't.
long as things are getting updated and reviewed, I don't care how it happens.
Yeah.
Because it's your role, not ours.
mhm.
If we can help, we'll help, but that's up to you.
And in all meetings, unless I'm wrong here, I don't know of any meeting that's not open to the public.
I don't think we're allowed to.
Everything but executive session,
That's what I'm
know.
saying. So this thing that like nobody gets any input, there's
Well,
plenty of
there-
opportunity for input if people really
But we
want.
don't always take,
Public
we
comment.
could,
You always take public comment.
well, there's a 3 minute. I
Right.
do the 3
You're just
minute.
not having public discussion on your
But we
agenda.
did, from affordable housing, the first meeting we had was an information meeting
Mhm.
where we took public input.
Yeah, those are great.
And then, we then got in, and at some point, then you gotta say, okay, stop, we gotta put an article together that we can take to a public hearing, so.
Mhm. And oh, sorry, Jerry.
No. I guess this is my question. You have competing priorities. Do you want the planning board and George to establish the priority list, or is that going to be coming from the board? That's my question.
As I thought we were pretty clear on this, but the planning board should be setting the directive of what they want to be bringing to
Mhm.
us. We don't know what's on their agenda. We don't know what the hardships or whatever they're having in terms of their, I don't want to be creating which direction or appointing them to what ordinances they should constantly be changing. I think that's kind of an overstep.
So two things that could come out of this would be to delegate to the planning board responsibility for putting together priorities for the next town meeting, land use policy proposals.
George, I'm
Mhm.
confused on why that would have to be delegated. They already have that authority.
Stamp of approval, and because when we go out to the other committees, it's important that they understand the select board is on board with this and supports it.
I think they just have to watch the video.
I think they just need to read you guys' mandate if anybody has a question of it.
So I think I do understand why you're here, and I think it's fair because at the end of the day, you're going to bring warrants to this board, and we're either going to say yes or no based on whatever it is that you bring us. And so right out of the gate, if this board doesn't feel that what they're working on aligns with the policy, the comp plan, whatever. I completely understand why you're here, and I think it's fair. I think that that's what they're looking for, is that they don't want to go through all that work to know that they're going to come here and it's going to get rejected.
I think what your point, Rich, is that it's up to them to go through it all. So they can start something and then come to us, and we can either say at the end, yes, it's a good idea, or no, it's not something we're going to put on a warrant issue. And what they're advocating for is maybe a little bit more of communication up front, so they know, hey, we're not going to spend 500 volunteer hours on this if we know that the select board is not interested in bringing this to the town warrant.
Out of select board. If a planning board that you support and they answer to you comes to you and saying, hey, we're having problems with this, why would you dismiss them?
I'd say I'm not voting for you next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying.
I agree with you.
I'm not saying
I
I would,
understand.
yeah.
I understand the point.
I understand
agree with
the
you
point,
100%.
but I don't get, I mean, this is just.
And we're gonna.
It's superfluous to me.
and we're
You're
gonna
looking
be-
for authority from us for authority that you already have.
And we're going to be kept up to date at these monthly meetings. Where
Yes.
You come in.
As I did
And I'm assuming that, I don't think any of us are so shy that we won't say, what the hell are you doing?
Exactly.
So I think you'll get an idea.
And I think
Right.
that's fair. And I think that's what we're looking for. You're obviously, I mean, you all came. I mean, at some meeting or another, everybody sitting at the table there came. So, and I'm good. And that may be my personality. If I could just say, here it is, cite it because it's now the law, I'd be perfectly happy too. But it's just
Wouldn't we all?
democracies don't work that way.
No, we want to keep it fair. We want to have an open process for
we will.
everybody. That's why all these meetings are public and everybody has a chance and everybody has the opportunity. They can call you, they can call a member of your panel, they can call George as a thing. I'm sure people on this panel have called George before. Everybody has that option in town.
So the discussion that we had about affordable housing in the state, do we move
The timing
forward?
of it?
The timing of it. Do we move forward now with it? Who makes that decision? Are we going to work on it now, or are we going to put it on hold?
And this may be an awareness issue more than anything because
Because it's too premature, right?
it's too premature. And I pushed to get it done last year. And obviously that turned out to be a dumb idea. So I just want to make you all aware that right now, there's no way we can get anything done before the 1st of July. So if they don't extend it or they don't exempt Durham from it, there's going to be a window or whatever you want to call it, vulnerability or a window where somebody could come in and say, I want to put 3 houses, on this lot and I'm exaggerating a little bit, they could come in. So there's a window of opportunity where somebody could come in and do it according to the state law. And my recommendation is, and what I would shoot for, just for your information, is that we not do controversial land use changes at a ballot election. I think there is much to be, so rather than shoot for the November deal, my recommendation is we wait until the town meeting where we've had plenty of time to vet all of this stuff. And there's much to be done, learned, whatever, on the floor of the town meeting.
So you're, just so that I'm clear, you're suggesting to stay vulnerable from July until April.
That's what I would suggest we do rather than rush it for a ballot thing where you're going to have a very low turnout and you can't, at least in the town meeting, you can explain it. You had people get up on both sides and say, this is why I don't want to do resource protection. This is why we need to do resource protection. And I don't think we're talking about hundreds of houses. I mean, I think, we're probably not talking about that big of a gap. So I guess that's what my plan of attack would be, is that we let the state finalize their rules. We find out what's going to happen there's 17 different pieces of legislation that modify the original. And that all has to sort out by the 1st of July.
I got a feeling this one's going to take a while.
And so we just,
So George, you were saying that you felt like it was going to go into effect on July
I
1st?
think it is.
You do think it is, even though there's all this legislation that
There
hasn't been
is.
sorted yet.
There is, but the housing crisis has not dampened at all. And so the question will be, and the proposals on the table right now up there are to punt it for 2 years.
Right.
I don't see the governor and the legislature doing that. And the other ones are to exempt every town under 10,000. Those are the two main proposals.
Right.
I don't see that happening because think about all the towns in this region that are in the Portland, this metro area. So I think it's going to go into effect July 1st.
and if it doesn't good, if it's punted or they don't require us to participate. If not, there's a 6-month window there that somebody can walk into the code enforcement guy and says, here's a duplex with a additional unit on it. I don't
We're
see that.
always kind of subject to that, aren't we? There's always a chance that could always happen, no matter what steps we take now. Am I wrong on that, George? Because we don't know what the final ruling is going to be. So there's always that chance,
Well,
that could always happen.
They just released the final rule last week. And I'm sending it to the
Has it
planning
been,
board.
okay.
But that law won't go into full effect until July 1st. The only thing that's going to change that is an act of the legislature to delay the implementation date or exempt every town under 10,000. Those are the only two things.
And the
that change.
reality is it's not even a 6-month extension because the earliest we could do it is if we wanted to do the paper ballot is the first Tuesday in November. So it's a 5-month or whatever it is.
Well, you could call a special town meeting.
We have before.
Right.
Yeah, I would advocate for trying to handle it sooner than later because win, lose, or draw, in my opinion, on the state ordinance. I think when the fact that we have local municipal control for these sorts of things, we want to implement that as soon as we can, but making sure that people are fully educated on it. So I would think that if we could do something that incorporates a special town meeting, that would be beneficial. I'm fairly comfortable with the paper ballot because realistically, if you look at like the results of the election, about as many people voted in the election as voted at the town meeting on the secret ballot. So it's a similar turnout, but in both cases, a public education component to explain the two options I think would be important, which we had kind of started to do until the monkey wrench got kind of thrown in it all. But I'd advocate for us trying to do something sooner rather than later.
And we're still looking at probably, it's not going to happen much before January by the time we write it up, vet it, 3 months of various meetings.
My
So-
clock starts right now.
So George, I wonder how close with what was being proposed to go on at town meeting this year versus you probably haven't had a chance and it's completely fine if you can't answer this question right now. The final rule you said just came out last week.
That's right.
Did you do a comparison of the final rule to what you had already written? And are they close? How far away do you think they are?
The real crux of it is the comprehensive plan really is very much going in the same direction as this new law.
Mhm.
The difference is the comprehensive plan says allow more units, but keep them in the character of the community and the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So instead of allowing 3 standalone houses all beside each other on a 2-acre lot, this says have a single family with an accessory apartment in the daylight basement and over the garage.
Mhm.
So you look at it, it still looks like a single family, a duplex with an accessory apartment on the back.
Mhm.
That was that's pretty much in line with what the comprehensive plan recommends. The state has said you cannot put any size restrictions on the units.
Right, the
Therefore,
units.
that says that plan would not satisfy.
What the article was not in compliance. That's why we pulled it. It was not, the article that we were bringing up was not close to in compliance with the state rule. So we'd have to go back to square one and say, okay, how do we get there and do all of the things that.
Yeah. So there are it'll take some tweaking.
Yeah.
But to get something on the ballot for next town meeting, you've got the summer to do the research, you've got the fall to do the public process, and then you've got the winter to get it through the process for official town meeting. So
Yeah,
our clock starts now.
I would be surprised. I don't know how many extra units you would gain, gain, whatever. I'm sorry.
No problem, John. This is one of those classic examples. If this like what you gentlemen see when or what, I mean, you guys know better than us. You guys are the experts on this. This board is not. We would, if you guys came to the board and said, hey, we want to get going on this. I've never seen a board say, hey, no, hold off. Let's flip the coin.
I mean, at least two of us want to see you move faster than what you're proposing, and but doesn't get us anywhere for wanting that. So, I mean,
And we can take a look at it. We can.
Yeah,
We'll see what happens in the
I
next
think,
6 weeks.
I think it's, hey, we have this coming up, in the next couple meetings, and you gentlemen are here and giving your, update and say, hey, we think that we need to get moving on this. Not think, we are getting moving on this and we're going in this direction. And if somebody on the board wants to say, stop you, then we can have a discussion. But
Okay.
I don't think we should have people of your caliber sitting here and then we're kind of fighting you. That just doesn't, it's not good government.
I'm good with that. I think that's.
I have a question about the solar array situation.
Mhm.
You said that there were applications or people are trying to apply. What, can that happen because we don't have anything that governs that right now? Could
Yes.
somebody, it could?
Yeah.
Okay,
So we'll
so,
just be applying as a conditional use.
I don't think anybody's, correct me if I'm wrong, with the
No one
last I
has
heard.
filed an
they-
application,
they
but
have
people
filed?
have been designing projects.
Yeah, I've seen survey work happening.
Yeah,
So
there's that, but it's not, there's no application that's is before us
thank you.
at this point. But it's something to consider.
Quick question for explanation on that. So, a conditional use permit, even if it's in a non-regulated resource, just someone's field, but all they would need is a conditional use permit, just to.
And there are no standards.
And it goes before the planning board.
But it sounds like essentially there's the planning board hands are tied. It's just yep,
The planning board does not have the tools to deal with it.
right. So it's if someone proposes a solar project,
Cell
right?
towers.
It sounds like so if someone proposes a cell tower or solar field outside of a resource protection zone, it's just a guaranteed go through the motions, sign the paperwork, and it gets built.
And that's something, that is something to consider.
I'm just asking for if clarification. Is that what our current process is?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fee structure for that is very limited. Like,
Yeah, I mean, what are we charging?
$50.
It's the same fee as putting in a breaker in your house.
Yeah, that's-
Less.
But yeah, it's cheaper to put a solar panel than a new outlet. Interesting.
Yeah, so I think the good news about solar is there are towns that have solar ordinances.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to tell you to do your job, but it's like I know that surrounding communities.
Be the priority.
Well, I mean, that's for them to decide.
I
I
mean,
mean, we're not dictating to you, but I think, a
Well, I
couple
think-
of us think there should be,
and it may be.
Well,
it's-
One thing, the reason I bring that up is if you go on the solar siting tools for the state, they have mapped like priority areas based off of the transmission line and the infrastructure that already exists. And there's two lines that run parallel to prime spots here in town. So whether you, if you're a solar siting tool, if you're a developer looking at the solar siting tool, Durham has some green lights flashing. And whether you want that or not is, win, lose, or draw, whatever your opinion. But we just don't have any. Since it sounds like it's just
Are there state standards?
Guaranteed
that
here.
exist?
There is a model ordinance that's been provided by the state that many towns use and tailor it to their.
But
own particular-
the permitting process at the state level is exempt for projects under a certain footprint, and a lot of the developers build up to within a square foot of that footprint. So it's a expedited process, and
It's like
It's
15
just-
lots.
it's just through the door. So
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Anything else, gentlemen?
The Cubs game started 10 minutes ago.
oh, you're not missing anything.
By now they're up like 5.
Yes, sir. Please sit down, sir. No, sir. Public comment has been closed. I apologize.
Old business.
New business, GP Cog Annual Summit.
yeah, so I'm getting emails from the Greater Portland Council of Governments. We pay membership dues to them, and we're supposed to have delegates, and they have no delegates for the town of Durham. And they would like to know who we want to appoint as delegates. You get 2 delegates and 1 alternate.
Does it have to be a member of the board?
typically they're members of boards.
Can you explain to me what the time commitment and stuff like that is? Do you know?
I'm not sure what the time commitment is, but they do expect that, like they have a summit at St. Joseph College on May 25th where they
Do you
talk
know
about.
what?
Every
You're
year.
smirking. Why are you smirking?
Who's smirking?
You.
I didn't smirk. Did I smirk?
No,
Yes.
so I'm just,
Oh, yeah, look. No, I would tell you this. Every year they ask for somebody to be on this
Mhm.
summit committee, and I can't think of in the 6+ years I've been floating around here, somebody's ever done it.
they want names.
Can
No,
you
they
tell
want
me the
names every year,
purpose?
but
What's the purpose?
I'm just giving them.
Well, you're a member of the GP
Yeah.
cog
Okay.
community, so any,
So what's gonna happen there? And
they're gonna
what's
talk
the
about their
purpose of it?
budget. They're gonna ask for members to sit on their executive committee. And you vote. You're a delegate. You vote for some of the things that they bring up. So they're just reaching out to me saying Durham doesn't attend. You have 2 delegate. What's going on?
We pay dues. And didn't we do that grant that you got? Isn't that from them?
I mean, my initial thought is if there's anything we can do to leverage benefits for the town, that's a good idea. So if there's opportunity to play a more active role and that directly benefits us via grant opportunities or even getting, more help, like when George is doing some of the planning stuff and he needs some maps from GP cog and they've prepared him in the past. So like if there's sorts of things like that help us, I see our participation paying dividends. But it sounds like we haven't been. So are we missing out on opportunities, or is it
No,
just?
no, we're still a
Yeah,
member.
but it's like
I nominate Joe Tom
Yeah,
as
There you go.
as a delegate.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
Are you sure the town manager can't do it?
What
Yeah.
is GP Hogs?
Should be
That's the smart.
should
that's
be
the
an
smart-
should
that's
be
the
an
smart-
officer, not an official.
Yeah.
Greater Portland Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or council
It's
government.
council of government.
Council government. Get us a better deal on salt,
Are we
Calvin.
part of the Androscoggin Council
No,
of
and I
Governments?
just found out that we switched over to GP cog because we got better salt prices.
Well, yeah.
Kind of.
If-
I can go on the 25th, so
But
I can't
anyway.
Yeah,
volunteer.
if we're not missing out on something, we can be the absent student,
If that's-
we can be Ferris Bueller, but
And I can share that with them. They're not interested.
I would love to know what the time commitment. If we're talking about once a month,
It's
that's
once a
very
year.
different.
The
than
summit is
what-
once
But
a
it's
year
only at the summit that they want someone.
to
They're not
vote. That's where
looking-
they have their annual
Is
meeting.
it an
and
all-day
vote.
thing?
No, it's from 2 to 4:30.
Cocktails afterwards. buddy.
Yep, it's you kind of
Some of us
mingle
work
and
on, 8 to 5 job, so
Tell me.
I can't.
so we can table it if you want to nominate
Just
later.
table it
24/7,
Yeah.
so,
so
Like I
that
said,
Joe can be part
no
of it. Let me
sympathy
just
for me.
check.
Yeah. Like I said, they're just
That's
reaching out to me,
everything
and
about
I'm just
all
letting you
around.
folks know.
I hear you.
Do
Trust me, I'm just
do-
in a game.
do it.
Don't
what you
have a
want.
game. I could
So-
commit to that, but
So
It
can we,
has
can
to
we,
be a formal appointment and saying, okay, blah blah blah. Just letting you know. Do it.
no, that's understandable. So could
you
you,
want to wait
could,
till the next meeting?
yeah.
no, yeah, what I was going to suggest is, could you just get us some more information of exactly what it entails? If you're confident, so be it. That's the information.
Yep.
But let's relay it to Joe. I would not want him to miss out on this opportunity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because usually it's a vice chair too, by the way.
This today, sorry. So no,
Okay.
as far as the vice chair goes. But let's just make sure we got all the information as far as what the actual commitment is and what the actual
Benefit.
responsibility of the commitment. Again, with the benefits, we're already members of GP cog. We're getting our maximum benefit. It's just whether what we lend to them would be, I'm guessing they get the vote as an executive. Hey, we're buying this X
And you
amount of
vote
salt
on their
and things like
budget.
that, and you
that-
vote on
and
their
that
budget.
type of stuff.
We still
And you
would.
shake hands.
We're
and
not going to
have a
be
drink and-
blackballed and not get our
No, no.
GP cog.
No, no. They're just reaching out saying, hey, we don't have any delegates from Durham. What's going on?
Okay,
That's
let's talk about
basically
it at the next meeting and
Okay.
see what Joe thinks, and I potentially would be willing to go.
God bless you.
Okay.
Durham
Yeah,
Historic District
These
Commission
yeah,
reappointments.
these were just 2 that were left off
They
last
want-
week.
Wait, they want 2 delegates and an alternate. That's half the board. That's 3/4, 3/5.
That's why I don't.
That's right.
I mean, unless you got
Just
to.
submitting
There's like
names.
Portland probably has a town council of what, 25 people or something.
I think they just want some names.
I think your
We
name would
need
be
to
great,
sign
Jerry.
these.
So we're going
Thank
to,
you.
Sign those.
I'm going to make a motion to accept.
Hang on, let me get that going here. So we have two appointments for the Durham Historic
Yeah,
Commission. These are reappointments.
reappointments.
Yep, we are looking to reappoint Mary Fallon and Linda Litchfield, excuse me. Could I get a motion for that?
I move that we reappoint both of them. Did they need to be separate motions?
I think we're all right for
Well,
this
how did
one.
we say it the last time?
You did the whole bunch.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we're
50 of
we're
them.
we're
as
okay with this
presented in the
one. As
packet.
presented.
Right.
I move to reappoint the individuals as presented in the packet.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? If there is discussion, if someone has something to say about these individuals, this would rest right here, and we would have to table this for an executive session. So just cautioning everybody that if they haven't heard that spiel before. So hearing nothing, all those in favor? 4-0, they are reappointed. All righty, warrant and notice of election for RSU 5 budget validation referendum needs select board
Yeah,
signatures.
so the RSU 5 put out their warrant. It's Jessica's gonna post it 7 days before the election, but we need signatures from the officers to send back to them.
On all 3 copies, please.
What if we don't
Are they
sign?
all there? So there's 3 copies there.
There's no
so-
sticky notes to point to where I'm supposed to sign. I
Let's
don't,
go nuts, buddy.
it's right across the top.
You need a pen? I think you might be.
It'll be
I'm
noted
gonna
in
have
the
to bring a
performance
pen.
appraisal.
I grabbed one up front.
I got one at my.
Yeah, it says, it should say municipal offices on there.
Right, where? Right here?
Yeah, is that where it says?
It just says location of posting, time and date. I just
Let's see.
started the wrong spot.
Right there, see the municipal office of the town of Durham sign, yeah. right
So it's
there.
the sign right here,
Yeah,
date, time, and then it says location of posting.
Maybe flip it over so
You know, go when each person.
This is
signs
pound-
there. If you go to that,
Majority
you get
municipal
one
officers,
by
Durham,
one.
Maine.
Um,
Oh, yeah, wrong page, right
right
here.
there.
Other than that.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
see a majority of municipal officers of Durham, Maine.
I wrote a
right there.
date here that someone's gonna need to.
yeah, just sign it.
Where's this vote gonna be at?
And Vents.
Is that a fact? Or still TBD?
No, that's a fact. It's gonna be the events.
Thanks. Joe, is this you right here?
Yeah.
You don't know.
That's right, she told me to sign.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's Durham, Maine.
My signature's actually legible.
No. Mine's consistent.
3 letters.
Mine's consistently illegible.
There's just one there, right? Was there 3?
There should be 3.
Yeah.
And what, this goes to Powell next?
No,
Pownell already
each
signed
county
it.
is its own one.
Oh. That's fancy. Item number 8, consent agenda. Any board member may request to have an item removed from the consent agenda for discussion. I have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I would like to remove the minutes for discussion.
Okay.
Please.
All right.
So do we talk about it now or do we have to vote?
Nope, you can remove that now. We'll vote on to approve and sign the April 14th and April 21st, 2023 warrant, both payables and payroll.
So moved.
Second.
You gotta say all in favor, I think.
Was there a second?
I second it.
Oh,
All in favor?
Where do I sign here? Here's my sticky note.
And then make sure you flip them over too. And
You know, I gotta be honest with you, I can't think of one time that that's ever been separated,
So-
but with that said.
We
I
separated
think
it
we need
last
to have,
time.
we need to have, we need to have a
Took
motion.
it off to, yeah.
We need to have, I'll move to accept, to approve the minutes from the April 11th select board meeting. Not the March, April.
Okay, but I want to discuss something about it. So what do we do?
So it
It's
needs to
from
be
March,
seconded.
April 11th? That's what I don't
It's
get.
from the April 11th meeting. So it needs to be seconded and then we can have a discussion.
I'll second discussion.
Okay, so when I read through them, I know that we made some edits and it said that I abstained, but it still reads the vote is 3-1, and then Heather Roy abstains, but there were only 4 of us at that meeting, so it needs to say 3-0, and that I abstain instead of 3. What? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember how, I didn't print it out. And I'm trying to remember how it's worded. But I think
Do you have it right there, Jerry?
Yeah, I'm gonna,
I have it.
it's right here somewhere. I just gotta find it.
So there's the one
Yeah,
where
it says
we,
3-1. It's right here. I got it. Yep.
so there's 2 places. It's when we voted for the minutes and then when we voted for the chair. And I abstained from both of those votes.
And yeah, I mean, so I read it as 3 in favor, 1 abstain. It should have said
Right.
3-0-1, I think,
Yeah,
technically.
that's the way I took it too.
That's, so that's,
Okay.
I mean, because
But you
I
voted- you
noticed, I
voted to
noticed that
abstain.
too, but
Okay,
I noticed that too, but there were only 4 people here, so.
right. I just, okay. I just want to be
But I
sure
mean,
that that's.
if you want to, I'll amend my motion to indicate that the minutes should be amended to say 3-0-1, so 3 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstain. Does that make sense?
Yes. If that's what's, if the way that this is.
So your motion
written-
is to approve the minutes per the correction of 3-0-1.
Yeah, I mean, I read it that way because at first I noticed that, but then I read it,
I just saw 3 votes and I thought it was good.
yeah. But so I'd amend it, my motion to indicate a change in the meeting minutes from April 11th to say 3-0-1. So that it indicates there were 4 people, 3 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstained. And then it indicates that Heather abstained from both votes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
To amend, I think he,
Oh,
Where else was it in there?
it was the meeting minutes and the board chair nomination.
Right, it was the board chair nomination in the meeting minutes.
No, and the meeting minutes, the vote from
to
the March,
accept,
to accept the
meeting
meeting minutes
minutes.
from the March meeting.
Oh, gotcha,
because I wasn't,
Because you
I
wasn't
didn't
there.
attend that meeting.
gotcha.
So you need to,
Yeah.
if,
There was a second?
I think you need to because you seconded the initial.
I don't need to. If somebody else can second. Is there a second? If not, I will.
Second.
Okay, second. Any further discussion on this?
No.
All those in favor? 4-0, Jerry.
Hmm?
They did not abstain this time. 4-0.
Yeah.
All right. This is always fun. Upcoming meetings in town news. Select board meeting will be 5/9/23 and 5/23/23 at 6:30 PM. I know Joe's not here. What I would like to see, and we talked about this, is maybe on the 5/23, if everybody's available, we meet maybe a half an hour early and maybe we do one of the town properties that day, like Public Works or something.
What are we doing?
I think everybody should be, just get acquainted with some of the.
Oh, you got me
property.
go meet.
You just
and
go,
check out.
not
Yeah,
necessarily
no,
meeting
that's
staff,
awesome.
just see the building, just so, because you will get a comment from here to here. By the time you're done with 3 years, you'll get a comment.
Yeah,
Somebody will
because
ask you a question.
I ran into one of the public work guys at the town meeting. I just said, I've never been in the facility. I'd love to go.
No, we'll
see
get
the
you.
facility.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
just
you're welcome
whatever.
to go on your own,
Yeah.
but it's nice sometimes just do it as a group and knock
Robin's
out a
office
building
is
now
bigger
and
than
then.
my house.
It's
You-
very nice.
You've never been to the Taj Mahal of
I
Durham?
haven't. No.
I don't think
Do I need my suit?
I don't think
Do
we're
I
talking-
put my suit on before I go over? Or?
3 if that's
At
possible.
Public Works.
Is that what we're doing, Public Works on?
We'll do public works.
23?
Yeah.
All right,
I'm glad you brought, because I drove by the other day, I was like, oh, we talked about doing more of the building, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, no problem. That's why you guys pay me the big money on these.
That's right.
Also, there'll be a planning board meeting on 5/3/23. That will also be at the town office at 6:30 PM. Jerry, do we need an executive session tonight?
we don't, but I got a couple other comments that I want to make before we adjourn. Is that cool?
Like upcoming meetings or something?
Yeah, I told people 9:30 for the budget committee. It's actually at 9 a.m.
On Friday.
This Friday, the budget,
Jerry's budget
Workshop.
summit will be at 9:30.
yeah, it's the workshop from MMA
Budget
at 9
extraordinaire.
o'clock, Friday.
Subway's gonna provide lunch. Just kidding.
It might. Depends. Time we get out of here.
And just, I'd like to have you think about this, select board workshop, a date for that, so you folks can come in.
Is that something that's typically done on a Saturday or?
It is, it's kind of a closed meeting and we kind of talk about some,
It doesn't necessarily have to be on a Saturday. It can be during the week. It can be like we've done them like maybe 3. So what has transpired in the past as far as these go? So maybe on next meeting, we carve out a little bit of time and we have a discussion about upcoming, and we put down maybe 1 or 2 items from Josh, 1 or 2 items from Joe, 1 or 2 items from Heather, and maybe somebody doesn't have any items, and then we rank those and see what we want to do with this. So it doesn't become, we actually have an agenda when we go into this. It's not just a free for all.
A workshop.
And
So that's,
does he get a
yeah.
Does he get a task too? Like if we're all putting up 2, does he get to put it? I mean, maybe he has some things that he wants to,
Well, I think, well,
or no?
He can do whatever he wants.
So is this
I'm
like the
not-
summit that we were just
No,
talking
no,
about? the
well,
planning
it's
board
just for the,
having?
right, it's just
Yeah.
for the select board.
This is more
But-
just a select board workshop to see, like, for example, maybe we want to add discussion about, one of the things I would say that
Yeah,
we
I
need to add
understand.
discussion about is like, what are we going to do about the town properties that we're going to go visit? For example,
Mhm.
specifically the church and the old
Mhm.
town hall, things like that. Those are,
Starting that committee sometime soon, maybe.
yeah.
You're gonna
Maybe not,
chair it, right?
no, I don't chair committees.
So that's one thing that I kind of want to bring up is typically, I don't know how you've done it here in the past, but typically there's somebody that runs that meeting. If there's a facilitator, the chair of the board doesn't run it because they're involved in the discussion. So how do you feel about that? I just don't want the meeting to run amok. You know what I mean?
That's
It
why-
needs to be,
I think,
I shouldn't
I
say
agree
that.
with you that it shouldn't run amok. but
Right.
I don't think, again, this is kind of like the topics earlier. I think if people just put up there what they see fit, a couple of things, and move forward, I don't think we need to turn this into an all-day event and everybody gets upset because theirs don't get picked or something of that nature. It's just, let's rank them priority. If you have 2, you have 2, you have 2, I have 2. We might all have the same,
You might.
you know what I mean? And as far as like, if the discussion's that heated and debated,
They're not heated. They just need to be like organized and, someone takes notes and
well, the organization
kind of like
really
goes
wants to
around. I mean,
have a quick,
I'm just saying the ones that I've been at before have been facilitated. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I would be,
How about this?
I'd be
How
remiss
about-
if I didn't tell you that.
How about
That's all.
if we do one amongst ourselves?
Sure.
And if you feel like it's not productive or on task enough, and listen, you guys have to be like Mitch. I mean, like Milt, right? Sometimes, like what was happening when I was asking my questions. If it's not the because I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I
That's
just
normal.
do because I
Right.
want to understand the process, right? And so it's totally fine, and it does not offend me to say now is not the time, as long as I know there will be a time, right? I'm totally fine with that. So if we have one and you feel like it's not productive enough or staying on task the way it needs to, we could then entertain the idea of a facilitator if it's necessary.
It's really like some of them will call them goal settings. They're like, what are your goals for 2024? And some of it might not be much of anything. It could be maintenance. It could be going the same way. It might be,
that
we
might
don't
be the
know.
first discussion we have before we
Right.
book this is, what does everybody think about that? The board might not want to have it.
right.
I definitely want to. I was making my lists and I was like, we have a meeting every other week. I have 26 chances to address things. I have a lot of.
But again, once again, though, like we're not even following topic as it is. This is right now. If this is something that we want to all discuss or bring up and plan meetings and stuff like that, let's put that in new
It should be-
business.
Right,
It should be in the
For
agenda.
next.
right.
It shouldn't be.
I just want you to think about a date, that's all.
Well, that's what I mean. We should put that so we can formulate a date and how we want to proceed.
I think your
That
question
date,
built
yeah,
a
plan
case
my
for a
day tomorrow.
facilitator right there, Chairman. but-
I can't plan my day tomorrow.
I know, it's very hard, but I mean, it's something that we can add for the next meeting, new business proposal for future workshop for select board.
Yeah, I
Something-
think other than the fact that it's not on this, we did discuss it last time and we did, I feel
Well-
like we came to, well, Joe wasn't here, but we came to a consensus that it was something that we were gonna do. And then I think it just didn't get on the agenda.
Well, I'd like the other
Yeah.
board member to be here too to discuss it, so that's why. I
Yeah.
left it off this
We
time.
So
plan on
do-
having a full quorum next, or full.
Yeah, we should have all.
we have
Does
a
one
full
of us
quorum.
need to email you to ask you to put that on the agenda, or is it something that you can
I'll
just?
remember to put it on. I left it off purposely because Joe
Yeah.
wasn't here for this one, but.
We're gonna get both Joes in the same room.
That's fine. All I'm saying is next week, put it on, but we can't have, we're kind of breaking the rules of law.
Yeah.
Basically what you're talking about, we're doing.
Well, I
Yeah,
just-
he's
I just
making a
need-
case for a facilitator, you know?
Right, right. I just need a date. That's all I'm looking for next week.
We'll get you a date at the next meeting if the board wants to proceed. With that being said, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 4-0. Nice job.
So I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. I'm gonna have Jessica attend the meeting, so we take minutes. So
What are we talking about?
Jessica